Happy December, everybody, and welcome to our live chat. This is the last one of the year. Can you believe that? So I'm hoping that everybody is ready to change their attention from what am I going to give this person or that person and that sort of thing, and all the hassle that everybody experiences about this time of the year, and can focus a little bit on something having to do with painting. All right, so Matt and Cheryl have already checked in saying hello to us, Roger, and there comes Maurice. Very good. So I'm going to give a little time here for folks to come in, and while I'm doing that, I want to make, there's Stella. Good. Folks are gathering in. While we're waiting for folks to come in, which all of you are probably used to by now because there's so many chats going on online, especially on Substack these days and YouTube as well. And usually there's a little bit of what you call downtime at the beginning, waiting for folks to gather in. But I want to tell you about a couple of things if you haven't already taken advantage of. We are running some really good sales, wonderful sales on our courses and our lessons. Of course, the courses are on one website and the lessons are on another because you can't cram them all on one site. They're just too much stuff. Anyway, the lessons, the download lessons, the ones that all the members are used to getting a free one of every month. We have those on sale now for half price until Christmas Day. We're just going to run a little flash sale on that one, on both of them in fact, until Christmas Day, 50% off, and you can just grab all that you want. But be sure and download those before their expiration. The downloads do expire. The download portion, they don't expire once you download them and get them on your device, whatever you're using. But if get those download lessons, but also get them downloaded, and just have at it. It's okay with us. And we've got that for you there. We've given you that 50% off as our Christmas present to you. And also the courses. The courses are all there. I think we have 54 courses now on the Academy. So the website for the lessons is DianneMize.com, and the website for the Academy is DianneMizeAcademy.com. So all the courses are also 50% off, and those you can purchase the course now, but take it at your own leisure. And so they won't go away. They'll be there in your what's that thing called, profile page. Be on your profile page for as long as you want them there. Well, probably longer than you'd want them there. Once you purchase a course, it's yours to study for as long as you need. I see everybody's beginning to come in there. And now we've got Mary Ellen and Jenny and Cheryl. I already mentioned Cheryl coming in. They're having themselves a little conversation now, which is lovely. So, topic today, I think I'm beginning to get a reputation as the one who despises rules in painting. And it's not that I don't, well, let me put it this way. I despise rules because rules are demanding that you remember something and that you always follow it. But those things that make wonderful paintings do wonderful things are not rules. They're things that do things. They're active. They're not things you have to remember, but they're things that you can learn to see happening as you're painting, and that you can enforce making happen even more, even better. And I know that all of you, like I, have been taught there are certain things we should always do in our paintings, always look for in our paintings. Well, for one thing, I'll mention some of them, and then we're going to go fishing. We're going to look at where master painters have shown us that that's not necessarily true. One thing that's really been circulating for the past, for a long, long time now, you must have a focal point. Well, you're going to see you don't must have a focal point. You you do things with images of interest, and you find that our master painters of history will do a number of interesting things that may not follow that must have a focal point. You might see 2 or 3 so-called focal points. I like saying areas of emphasis, or rather than focal point, and I think you know that by now. So there's one of them, and another one, you must go by the rule of thirds. Well, you're going to see that's not necessarily true either. It helps. It doesn't hurt. It does help things to be in balance, when help images to be in balance, and in some cases more interesting. In some cases, I've seen rule of thirds taken way, way too far, and the painting just is dull and boring. So that's one thing following rules can do. It can make your paintings boring if you're just trying to follow the rule rather than allowing the painting to evolve according to what the elements do to each other. And so there's that one. We've also heard the number of images should be unequal numbers. Well, some of our master painters throughout history have shown us that that's not necessarily true either. And so all these kinds of things. So what we're going to do is instead of having a video at the beginning like we normally do on these Sunday chats, I should say these monthly Sunday chats, rather than having a video to begin with, we're going to have kind of a little bit of a slideshow and a chat together. So let's begin with the center of interest, where the rule goes, your center of interest should never be in the center of the painting or the center of the canvas. I believe that's how that goes. Roger, let's show slide number 1. Wow. Anybody familiar with that one? Where's the center of interest? The center of interest I see is right smack dab in the center of the painting. And so, of course, we've done many things with this one before. We've studied the one-point perspective. Well, what people who try to enforce that are not taken into consideration. 2 things. One is there is such a thing as a kind of balance we call symmetrical balance. And that simply means that the center of interest will be right in the center, and things on either side will balance accordingly. And so we don't even have to go into that, but I just wanted to start out with Leonardo's Last Supper as the one great rule breaker, in that the center of interest should never be in the center of the painting, because of course there is the symmetrical balance, as I pointed out, where that always happens. The center of interest is right in the center, and then what's going on either side has equal weight, and this side and that side, and so on. So that's one. But then let's go to number 2, Roger. Aha! Now we can talk some turkey. That's a painting by Richard Schmid. By the way, I've chosen 4, including Leonardo, of my favorite master painters, and gone through and found works of theirs where they have successfully broken the myth. I'm not going to call it breaking the rules. I heard that too. I've heard it said that the rules are made to be broken. Well, this is not even breaking rules right here. This is using principles. Now, so there's no question that the cat is right in the center. But do you notice do you notice that there are diagonal lines? Say here's a diagonal line right here, very, very strong diagonal. And then another diagonal over here that is a little less, a little more subtle as it goes down. And then we go up here, there's a diagonal line that pulls in at a slight angle. And then we see various degrees of diagonals here. And then we see the horizontals here. All those horizontals and diagonals are adding to that balance. Then if you look at how the color is distributed, you see from the major part of the reds from here over there, then the red leads back here. That's a strong leading of the eye around the painting. So I wonder now, do any of you have a question or an experience to share in the chat about the whole business of putting an image in the center of a painting? Have you ever been called out for putting your image in the center of the painting when you made it work, when you had other things happening within the painting that balanced that center of image? And the reason people will say that, something else I wanted to point out to you, something very important I want to point out about Richard's painting here. It's really a symmetrical balance. In addition to those things I pointed out to you that give it variation, it really does feel symmetrically balanced, because if you look at how things sort of balance each other on either side, and the way the cat is positioned, you see the angle of the cat, it's about the angle of the position of the cat as you see it right here. If I could just get, there we go, right there, and then over on the other side right here. See how those angles are kind of mirror images of each other? And then we see the horizontals going across. So it's sort of might call it an informal symmetrical balance. It's kind of playing around with symmetrical balance in a way that makes it work. So I just wondered if any of you have ever had an experience where you were called out for putting an image in the center, or did you put an image in the center and you didn't know, and you really weren't aware that there were things that you could do to make it work in the center? Okay, Matthew says, I wonder whether wonderful artists make these choices intuitively rather than being conscious of them. Well, I think what happens there is that it's both. I think it ends up being both conscious and intuitively, where an artist will spot a subject, or it's possible, of course now, I'm just judging from I'm responding from my own experience, but you will see a scene, you'll see something, and consciously and intuitively, or it will strike you that I could put that right in the center like that. This is the kind of thought that might have gone through Richard's head. That could I place that in the center of a canvas and make it work because of the way the cat is angled? You know, we are visual thinkers. Artists are visual thinkers, and that means that we will notice something happening visually in the world that might not be happening, that other people might not notice. Like most people, let me be careful here. The non-artists, people who are not visual thinkers will look at that and see a cat lying on red and orange cover of some sort. But when an artist looks at that, we visual thinkers look at something, we see it visually. It's not that we don't see the cat, but we'll see that cat in the position that the cat is lying, and we will notice that. We'll notice that those angles created by the position of the cat. And then it could be that That then leads to the painting, and then the next step of that painting would be, how could I make that work? Now, I'm thinking that because it's horizontal, maybe his first conscious decision might be the canvas. If the canvas were horizontal, then that would enhance the horizontal portion of the cat. But then what would we need to do, or what would I need to do in the angles? And so my guess is that I don't know exactly, but knowing something about how he went about working, my guess is he probably began to see, as he plotted the image, he began to see how he could pull things that were there and then let the painting kind of guide as to how those visual things could be enhanced. If you'll notice, the background the surroundings itself is very abstract, and the cat is very realistic. And yet there's certain portions of the painting itself, like we see right in here, where we might recognize maybe tassels from some sort of throw or something like that. So it's both, I think. I think we make both conscious and unconscious decisions, Matt, as we're working. So selecting being pulled to a subject is maybe more of a conscious decision. Well, it could be both, couldn't it? And so I think what we do is you get a painting will get started, and then you see more and more possibilities visually as to what could happen in relationships, how the relationships could be supportive. Well, I see Marie has come in. Hello, Marie. And let's see now, Matt says, I think a lot about that too. I wonder whether they were just in the flow. I think it's both. I think you get in the flow, and as you get in the flow, you're more visual. You're more responding to the visual things, and you are responding to that, and you will do things visually that you would not have planned ahead to do. So that's why it's so important to, I'm always saying, let the painting guide you. That's why it's so important to get in, just start focusing on the images themselves, the various characteristics of the images, and what the paint can do to enhance that. And then things will start happening on a painting that you can respond to without, you just automatically respond to those without really having a conscious thought as to why. You're just responding because you're seeing how it is working with the rest of the painting. It's a fascinating thing, absolutely fascinating. Let's see, Cheryl says, I painted a portrait once that was smack dab in the middle because it was a portrait. I think that's more accepted. I think it was more accepted. Yeah, now there's another thing. You will see that even in Sargent's portraits, you will see that a lot of portraits are centered in the middle of the canvas, but you will see the way the outside edges of a portrait are handled, or other things that might be put in there, are creating a visual visual images that are acting kind of as a visual path that makes the whole thing more interesting. Some of those formal portraits that Sargent did early and mid part of his career, they're really beautifully done, but you'll see they're very formal, and you'll often see that the main thrust of the image itself will be right there in the center, but the way it's positioned or within the proportions of the canvas, and the way he's handled the edges of the shape, the gestures of the shape, or maybe the fabric, or the number of things he might do there, you'll see that it allows it to be, it doesn't feel boring. And that the reason we are taught don't put images right in the center as a thing is that without things going on either side that can make it more, that can cause the eye to be interested in the whole painting instead of just the image that's in the painting. That's the point of it. That should go with that when that's being taught as a principle, not as a rule. Then it should also accompany the teaching as the using the space around the image, the space between the image and the edges of the painting, using other images there that can balance and keep the interest in the whole painting, rather than just having the image itself to be the only thing of interest. So yeah, that's interesting.
I have an observation on Smith's painting there. That is one heavy cat.
Yeah, it is one heavy cat.
And the other is the cat's face is close to the sweet spot as far as rule of thirds. It's close, but overall it's centered. Yeah.
Well, I'm not. I was looking at it from my viewpoint. I wasn't looking. Now, let's see if I can do it. Let's see if I can do this. Well, every time I turn it, it goes a different way. There we go. This is ridiculous, Diane. All right, let's do it this way. There we go. We're getting close. Corner to corner to corner to corner. Corner to corner to corner. Yeah. Y'all should try this sometimes. Yeah, the ear, especially right there, is close to the sweet spot. That's kind of interesting too, isn't it? That he's allowed the cat to extend out towards the thirds.
Yeah.
Towards the thirds, and that, in fact, it almost, when you start looking at the what we call the negative space, you kind of look that it's a little bit more narrow on on my right than the other two divisions are, but those are similar. So yeah, that's fun.
Okay.
Let's go to that number 3. See what how Mr. Sargent managed to break the rule. Yeah, you see what Sargent did there. You see that the I keep doing that. You see that the figure itself, there's another example, Cheryl. The figure itself is right in the center. And not only that, but the corners of the elbows, as they are aligned so that they too are equal distance from the edges. And that's interesting because we always try to make that point when we're composing paintings, to try to keep our intervals unequal, especially intervals from the images to the edges. Okay, I'm gonna break that thought for just a moment. Cheryl says, "I want to know how you got that cat to pose." Yeah. Okay, back to the guy. But do you see now what Sargent has done here? He's placed the image right in the center. He's done those things of the equal intervals of the elbows to the edges, but he's put interesting stuff within the area that the figure is not occupying, what we call the negative space. I've always resisted that term negative, but this is not even pertaining, because it does imply, the word negative implies the notness, and it simply means space. It simply means space between, space between images, parts of images like that. But let's just stick with it, not get off topic. So if we just call this negative space, look at that, then this becomes positive. Because he's got a painting on the wall there. It's a darker value at the top. I don't know what that is. But anyway, he's got images there that that are strong value contrast, and we can see, as compared to the image of the boy himself, they are really, they have more weight, they carry more weight, they carry more value contrast, and they are pretty much horizontally oriented in space if you just scan back and forth. And then opposite, and this is what he's got going on this side of the boy, on this side. And then you go on this side, he's got this strong vertical there right at the edge, with strong value contrast, and a strong vertical, and then picked up again here by the strong verticals of the table with those strong value contrast there. So he's given us some interesting vertical and horizontal shapes created by strong value contrast in and around the figure, and that helps it to be more interesting and more balanced, you see, and therefore he could get away with placing the boy right in the center. I think that's what I'm getting at, is that when we can do things in the painting that make it interesting, or that occupy the space so that the visual weight is distributed in the space itself, rather than being just located right in the center, the visual weight that the figure is carrying. Same thing, that there's the opposite was going on in the cat that Schmid painted, where we have the black and white. He just uses that strong black and white of the cat itself. And then he has all these reds and red and yellow oranges, red oranges and whatever, all those combinations of those warm, strong dark colors going on around it. So he's created and interested in the negative area, and therefore it works as a painting. So yeah. So those are just 3 examples, and so if you ever have an image that feels like it needs to be put in the center of the painting, go ahead and do it, but develop something strong around it, some sort of strong emphasis around it. Now you can go prowl through. I think there's a website called wikiart.org. I might have introduced that to y'all before. It's WIKIART, one word, wikiart, WIKIART.org. That is a nice collection. I think it's you consider a dictionary of artists. It has a nice collection there of centuries and centuries of art, paintings. I'm not sure if there's any sculpture there. I think it's mostly just paintings, artists in history. And it's a good place to go prowl and look for what other artists' work. Of course, the museum websites have the best images for finding samples of other artists' works. But okay, Cheryl says Sargent has a lot of heaviness on the upper right and not much on the left. Why does that work? It works because of the directional movement. If you look, Cheryl, I'm glad you asked that question. Yeah, if you look here, you see how this got this strong directional movement over here, and then we've got this strong directional movement right in here. So there's this being vertical and so close to the edge, this strong dark shape, and also the contrast of that strong dark shape with the light around it, that carries a lot of downward weight. So with this being more horizontal, you see what your eyes are doing. Your eyes will do this, they'll come down, then your eyes are picked up by this right here, and you sort of just keep going around. So that's my explanation of why it works. You just, remember these, remember the kinds of things that carry visual weight. That strong value contrast will carry visual weight. Darks are heavier visually. They're heavier than lights, meaning they pull more attention. The strong value contrast, the closer shape is to the edge, the more weight it carries. And so that would mean that the boy himself is not carrying very much weight at all, being right in the center. He sort of acts as an axis, doesn't he? As sort of an axis of balance right through there. So there we go with that. Okay, so
another observation on that.
Okay, Roger's got one. But
the way the boy is facing
yes,
away from the heavier side, and the way his feet are oriented.
That's that's very important. That's a good observation. And also, yeah, with his head turned towards that upper heavy corner there, that helps pull weight, because when a face is turned towards an edge, it pulls us there. We tend to look where the viewer's looking, and the weight is caused by what it's doing to our eyes. It's the way our eyes respond that causes the visual weight. So it's not something we just make up and pretend that it's there. It's what happens to our eyes. Cheryl, that is something that would not have worked out on a painting. It might happen serendipitous. I can't say that word today. Serendipitous. Again, is this experiencing or happenstance? Is this experience or happenstance? Is this experience or happenstance?
Maybe both.
You mean the painting, or that we're doing this now? That's just the way the world works, doesn't it? It usually brings us what we need when we've got our nose pointed in the right direction. All right. Let's now the next one. Let's go to number 4. Y'all have seen this before. Let's go to number 4. There we go. Now, this one's got, Wyeth is good. Wyeth tickles the dickens out of me. His paintings are very, very somber. Some of them are just downright shocking. And I remember this feeling of shock when I first saw this painting. Wait a minute, Cheryl's going back. Is it because Sargent had the experience? Well, of course, yes. I think it's all of that. It's all of that. Am I jumping around too fast? I need to give y'all more time. Okay, let's see. Going back, I guess maybe the internet's too daggum slow. Is that it? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, you've heard me talk about Wyeth before, but his work's so stark, but he's always pushing the envelope of taking the myths, the old adages, the so-called rules, and then showing, I will show you. It's kind of like he's saying, I will show you. Because look at here, he's broken 2 of them. At least 2 of them, and you might find others that he's broken, of things you've been told you should never do in painting. For one thing, we've been told you should always have odd number. You should always have odd numbers of images. How many major images we see there? 2. That's not an odd number. And then what we just pointed out, dark people. When a person's face is turned towards the edge, it pulls more weight. So we're usually advised, if you're placing people in your paintings, turn them towards the center, turn them this and that. Well, yeah, if that's the kind of meaning you want to give it, that works pretty well. But look what he did. He gave this image, Carl here. This image is the heaviest in the whole painting, and it not only is the heaviest, but his face is turned outward, right towards the edge. Just another foot and he would bump his nose right into the side of that painting. But it's balanced, and the reason it's balanced is because of the isolation of this image right here. That huge white space in between, and the isolation of this image. And we know that an isolated image will carry a lot of weight. And also if you can look at it's almost a wonderful abstract painting. If you just did this abstracted without the images in it, it would make a wonderful painting too. You have the strong value contrast here of the collar against that very, very dark collar against this very stark wall, and then her white garment and the white head covering, and really the only thing that has that's another value is this middle value tones of her face. So, but this area right in here is very, very, this just her face and the covering, the edge of that covering and of this collar, that's really, really a strong contrast. So that gives a lot of emphasis, a lot of weight, a lot of visual weight. Also, the verticalness of the figure, and of course the verticalness over here too. And of course we can't ignore the gun pointed in this direction. We can't ignore the psychology of the painting, the whole thing, but we're just looking at it visually, just as a visual image, just as a visual statement, as a painting with, if we didn't have those images in there. I don't know if anybody has ever, if anybody has ever done just done a study of just abstracting this, just where you would just use the values of the shapes and the shapes themselves, the overall shapes themselves and the values. But if you just squint your eyes, you can see that it really, it's really a strong abstracted piece as an abstract. But there we go again. He has made it work by just having two images, an even number, not an odd number. And by having this image face just a very, very close turn towards and face directly towards the edge of the painting, something we've taught we shouldn't do with figures or with people. I should say people. That word figure sounds too impersonal and generic and that sort of thing. Okay, Stella's question was, would that be a Steelyard composition? Yes, sort of in a way. I think, I don't know that I would characteristic so much as a Steelyard composition, but the fact that the balance is I'll get the axis right. We have the feeling of axis being somewhere about right in here, but you could switch it. You really could switch it visually and call an axis about right here, a visual axis. So, is it this or this? Visually, it balances, as long as it's balanced, as long as it balances, then, it won't necessarily fall into a category of one kind or another, but it gets close to the Steelyard composition. So, there's that one. So, it is possible to have equal number images in your paintings and have a really, really strong painting. But when you do that, how can I say this? Other things must capture the interest, and the reason that unequal number, I almost said principle. I guess it is a principle idea. Yeah, the reason that unequal number idea is prevalent, has survived, is because visually the unequal numbers are more interesting than the equal numbers. It's kind of like the difference between the sound, a steady sound of rhythm like that can become very boring, but if you vary the rhythm, it becomes more interesting. And so the unequal numbers can create more variation than the equal numbers. So it has been said. So let's see, where are we? Now, I'm going to go to somebody else. This should be very, very familiar to you. Yeah, look what's happened here, Sargent. Now, what has he done here? How many of how many things has he broken here of the rules you've been taught, or we've all been taught? Rules. You should never do this. You should never do that. You should never do this. You should never do that. But of course, I have heard it said, and this is certainly, I don't think it's true, but I've heard it said by some people, some teachers, oh, they just got away with it because it was Sargent. He got away with it because he's Sargent. He got away with it because it's Michelangelo. No, he didn't get away with the daggum thing. He made it work. You don't get away with something that doesn't work. Now, there is a Wyeth painting that doesn't work. I will argue that doesn't work, and I couldn't find a picture of it, but I saw it in a Wyeth show at the High Museum in Atlanta many years ago. It's a big old boulder, and it's sitting. He's got it placed, a big dark boulder. He's got it placed right in the center, and there's nothing going on there that makes it work. That makes the weight, that balances the weight, or creates any more interest. And in fact, I remember having an argument with somebody there when I said, nope, he didn't make it work. Well, I think the other person was probably more influenced by it being a Wyeth piece, and because it was Wyeth bound to turn and make it work. Listen, the master painters have dogs. Okay, that's not a compliment to dogs. That's kind of, I don't mean that way. Master painters. They
had bad days.
Had bad. Okay, that's good. Master painters have bad days. You know, just we get the idea because someone is a master painter and got some credentials of some kind, they always do it right. They do not. We do not. I may have a few credentials. I do not. We do not. They do not. So we've got all kinds of what we say weak works done by master artists that they left behind, and some of them, even Michelangelo, burned a whole bunch of his stuff. Wish he hadn't, because I really loved looking at the way he moved marks on paper, but he did. And there are other artists too that have bonfires sometimes, get rid of their stuff that they don't want people to see. Well, I'm not so sure that is doing the world any favor, because that kind of takes away from the humanness of everything. No, I think the percentage of, it's all about percentages. The percentages, master artists reach a point where their percentage of successful works is much higher than a percentage of someone who's maybe not quite as masterful. Maybe that's a better way to say it. So has anybody found where Sargent broke the rules? For one thing, he's got all of them going in the same direction. All the images are turned in the same direction. Well, we'll talk about some of those faces. There's the saving grace right there. But they're all marching to Zion, aren't they? But all the images are moving in this direction. So for the directional movement, we might be told, don't make something like that happen. So what do we see? But we see there's a little, with this face turned out looking at us here, and this face turned out looking at us here, and then there's a kind of a stopgap right here, kind of just a portion of a figure there. That puts the brakes on enough so that it pulls the eye back in, especially this stopgap right here, and pulling the eye back in. So I think he made it work. That ends up being one of my very favorite paintings of all time, because I'm sorry I keep throwing it at y'all, but I'm not sorry I keep throwing it at you. I just love some of Sargent's paintings. They're just, I keep going back to, because they're really good examples of a clever, where he was so tuned in to how things work, how the visual things work, that he would make these things happen on his canvas. Cheryl says, I love this painting. The way he has painted it makes it so intriguing, especially the story. Some of the women looking back at the viewer, what the heck are these women doing? Yes. And have you noticed, well, I don't know what we pointed out too, that could you call out any place here, any of you, could you call out any place there as the focal point? That's one reason why this is one of my favorite paintings. I don't think you can. Because if you say, okay, she's a focal point because she's looking at, well, she is too. That'd make two focal points, wouldn't it? There's one example where you don't have to have a focal point. To make a painting work, of course, I understand that idea, that to have have the images in a painting working around a central image or a central place or a central place of emphasis is a way of creating a nice balance or nice visual movement. But it is not necessary. But I hear it so much, and I see it so much in comments from people, almost as if it's taken for granted. Well, right here is my focal point. Well, but you didn't have to have a focal point. You could have made it work some other way. So I think that one was probably one of my biggest grievances, that everything has to have a focal point. Because I know where it comes from. I understand why, but I also know that master artists don't always have a focal point. And I always go back to the master artist, because I think, I've always been, I was the one that would drive my parents crazy asking why. And sometimes they would say me just because, my mother would often say because I said so, and that wasn't enough, but that would put a stop to it for a while. Anyway, I understand where it's coming from, but let's consider everything that we're taught, whether it's in books, whether it's people saying you really, this is what I always do. It doesn't matter about all that. Always say yes, but there might be another way to do it. And as far as the principles go, the principles are action things. They are things we do to make things happen. Just like, anything that you do, there are certain actions we do to make things happen. That's what the principles are. They're not things that we try to make work, but they're things we use to make a painting work. And I wish I could just drive that one home, because too many people got to make it trying to make the painting be this, be that, follow this rule, follow that rule. That just stiffens you up. It doesn't give you any life in your paintings at all to do that sort of thing. Let's see, Cheryl says, I like the thought that you've taught of moving the eye around the canvas. Yeah, good, Cheryl. Yeah, that visual movement is what we are doing. That visual movement is to the painter the same thing that a melody is for the composer or for the musician. But I like saying composer, because the composer is the person that makes the music that the musician plays. And especially if you look back in some of those major works of the great composers, like all of them, Bach especially, Mozart, Chopin, Beethoven, all of those, you can hear a little melody weaving through, no matter how complex a piece is. And depending on the composer, they'll do all kinds of things with that. And sometimes it might have started out with a little melody, and they begin just like a painter does when we start out with an idea. But what we're doing is the musician is using that melody to guide the ear, guide our sense of listening. The painter is using the visual movement to guide our visual sensibilities. So we are looking at images, yes, but it's because of those visual things that are going on within a painting itself that causes us to see the images the way we see them, and causes us to feel the way we feel about them, and causes us to interpret them in the way we would interpret them. So it's all such a beautiful thing. Maurice says creating versus manufacturing. Yeah, there you go. I think that would pretty. That pretty much says it for itself, Maurice. Good point.
I've I had a couple observations here.
Okay, Roger's observations. Great.
Okay, he has neither even nor odd objects, persons on here. He has 6.5.
Aha, 6.5.
And also, the lady near the central is the only one without a headdress.
Oh, this one right here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I've never really picked up on that. She's the only one without a headdress.
She's only one with a headdress. Ah, does that make her the center of interest?
Well, the lady looking at us behind her is a little bit lighter in tone. Her face is. Uh-huh. That's what drew my eye first.
Aha, and then you notice this one didn't have a headdress. Yeah, this has got all kinds, and then you've got one that we can't see the face of, right here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, there are all kinds of, but that is really interesting. 6.5 is neither even nor odd. So he has 6.5 images up there, figures up there. And so somebody's going to say, well, he grouped them. Okay, let's see if he grouped 1, 2, 3, 4. Or it depends on whether you call those 2 in the back, 2 on the left, my left, whether you would call that 1 group or 2 groups. But still, 6.5 images. Good observation, Roger. Well, we are dispelling myths, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
I'm kind of what would you call elaborating a bit. Oh, myths. Okay, I'll throw number 6 unless I wonder if anybody can guess who did number. I bet there's a. It's got a 6. 6. Oh, 6. This is 5. Number 6.
No.
Oh.
This is 5 right there. Look out.
This one.
That's 5.
That's okay. My number. We don't have a flame numbering system. Wait till the crosshair across because they didn't make any difference. Oh, is there someone working? I'm gonna close.
I'm sorry, that's number 6. You're right.
Ah, I was right again.
Yeah, I was ahead on the computer.
Hey, did anybody spot the signature? I just wondered if anybody could guess who did this. Who do you think did this? I'm gonna keep the name covered up if I can. Anybody want to guess who did this? Nobody? Would you believe that Monet did it? This is an early Monet piece. So I'm looking for, what am I looking for here? Several things I'm looking for there. One is, don't place the focal point right in the center. Wow. Let me see now. If this were the focal point, in fact, do you see a focal point? And if it sometimes when we have a 1 point perspective, this is of course I'm sure you recognize this as 1 point perspective. But sometimes when we have a 1 point perspective, then wherever that converges becomes what we might call focal point. And that's where the eye goes. The eye will always follow lines that converge. Have you ever noticed that? Your eye will do that. All right, so I'm trying to get my little thing here right there and help you to see that is right in the center of the painting. I have to do this stuff backwards, y'all. It's exactly backwards. And so I have to figure it. You see, I'm going from side to side of the painting. Now, look how he made even at that age, look how he made that work. He made that work by putting himself more on this side. He put himself on this side of the painting than on this side. And so really, visually, as far as our location, you're looking at the buildings and then the cast shadows here. I'll get the other hand. Cast shadows here of the buildings. If you look at how that works, that's what we become. That's guiding our eye more. The edge of this is guiding our eye more like this. It's kind of neutralizing, I guess you could say, the 1 point perspective visually, because with this being so strong here, we have another 1 point right here. Do you see that? See, there's a strong shadow this way, and then that this angle right here is converging with that shadow angle, right? I don't know why I can't do that. Because I'm not there. That's where I'm trying to find that edge right there. You see, we've got two converging areas, but the strongest converging area is converging right here, right where that figure is. That is clever. Now, there's something that might have happened in the process of his doing it. He might have discovered it while he was doing it, or it might have just happened unconsciously. I don't know. That was a long time ago. He never, did not hear from me to ask him. And I don't know. There's no way I can tell. I can just observe what's there and what's there and what's working. And then, so you can see, if we look at it analytically, it does appear that the converging lines and the focal point converge right in the center. You see that? Am I have I got that stick right enough there? But then we get this other stuff happening right here, and with this, in other words, he did a very, very clever thing there. Whether it was conscious or unconscious, I don't know. But the way he converged that line I'm sure probably the cast shadow was converging that way. Maybe in May, I don't know. But the way that cast shadow edge converges with the edge of the sidewalk there, and that figure that standing right in front of where those 2 points converge. That is really very, very, very clever done. Studio.
Ghibli.
There's a word there I can't pronounce, and I don't know.
Ghibli, maybe?
Huh?
Ghibli?
Oh, it's a Japanese word.
Japanese
anime. Yeah. Monet looks like a studio Japanese anime. Yeah, this is showing some Japanese. I was wondering if anybody saw the in the animation of the kind of the almost an animated figure, animated feeling there. To me, it's a little bit reminiscent of Van Gogh. I just wonder if anybody noticed that. That's just what I saw there. Anyway, so there we go. There's another. You can always find elements. If you sometimes just by examining what's there, you'll discover some fun things that nature will give us. Just in this case, just by the way the sun's shining, casting that shadow of that building. And so it looks like a parallel on one side and the parallel lines on one side of the edge here and the edge of the shadow. But you look on the other side and you see how those two create another 1 point perspective type vanishing point. And then we see that 1 point perspective working in the edges of the tops of the buildings and the bottoms of the buildings themselves. I just thought it was sort of fun, a real fun thing there. So what are we doing on time? Oh my goodness! All right, I tell you what. Let's just go to number 7, and we'll let this be the last one. Okay. Somebody would tell me which of the rules we've been taught. This is Monet again. Someone wanted to tell me which of our rules we've been taught that he breaks here. Nobody's popping up. I bet you there's probably some non-members that really want to, probably yelling it out. How many obvious even number? All right, Cheryl. That wasn't too hard, was it? Yeah. Even number, well, it feels like even number. If you look, he sneaked in another little boat back in the fog back here. Just a little bit. Maybe is it any others kind of poking him back there. But the thing that makes, and of course this too is an earlier piece, but the thing that makes that visually work, can you see how the angles are the angles of the sails? A second. Here I go again trying to make this thing work, and I just, for some reason, there we go. Look, the angle here, okay, repeated angle there. We've got those diagonals, And then if you look down here at the boats are counter that. You see the counter diagonal? The counter diagonals of the directional movement of the boats. I'm just going to point there and there. I can point to them. I can't make I just have to have some practice doing it. The counter directional, where there's the strong value contrast, that counter directional movement, and not only that, but the one on this side moving away from this one. You can see them, they are too visually creating a diagonal. They're visually creating a diagonal, which is a counter diagonal to the diagonals their sails creating. And if you look at that, that almost causes a perspective, almost imitates, I should say, a perspective point. Now, just let your eye kind of settle at the end of that, right up here, like that, and then it'll come this, oh boy. All right, just look at the tops of the sails, from this top of the sail to that top, how those would kind of converge. Can you do it with your mouse? Is the mouse showing? Anyway,
No.
they're sort of creating that sort of conversion. It's creating a visual movement there, where, and also if with the value contrast he's got in the waves up in this corner right in here, that he's got things going on around those sailboats that enable it to create an interesting piece, I think. Doesn't, and we aren't aware, they're just too emphasized there. So there we go. That's my take. We did have some others, but we've run out of time. In fact, we're kind of over time.
Ellen had a question about that.
Who?
Ellen?
Oh, Ellen. Hi, Ellen. Center line horizon. Ah! I didn't see that because I was too busy looking at the boats. But if we don't, it doesn't matter, does it? Because that value contrast and those diagonal visual directions are so strong that we don't notice that center line. Oh, there's another one too. I don't care if we're running over just a little bit, but YouTube can boot us if it wants to. It will be the one to suffer. Oh yes, that was another one. Is I have actually, I've actually read books where they will tell you that your horizon line needs to always be in certain places. Well, probably sure all of you have heard that too. Never put your horizon line in the center. Never put the horizon of the landscape's horizon, of the Earth's horizon, whatever. Never put that in the center. But Monet did. All right, folks, that's going to be it for this one, and this is going to be a wrap for the year of 2025, which I think most of us will most willingly bid goodbye. But meanwhile, for all of you who celebrate Christmas, I wish you the happiest, the most joyful and peaceful Christmas ever, and we will look forward then to seeing you again in the new year. So bye-bye for now.